Welcome to another episode of DD on the Spot. As always, I'm your host, Ryan Johnson. And before I get to our guest, well, first of all, if our guest looks a little familiar, no, she's not been on this podcast before, but she is the sister to Gabby DeLuca, who we had on the podcast, I'd say probably about, 6 or 7 months ago. Francesca is on the podcast. She's, just her story in and of itself, when she starts getting into telling it, it's just, I just can't wait to hear, because I saw her post. Her sister made a post about it on Instagram, and just I can't wait for her to share it. But first of all, I got to ask, because you're in Florida, just like your sister was in Florida, or she wasn't in Florida, but we know that you guys have been moving back and forth. What is the weather like in Florida today?
Oh, the weather's beautiful. I'm looking out the window, and when I'm done here, I'm gonna get in a bathing suit and hop in the pool because it is 90 degrees and maybe 87 degrees, sunny and bright.
I hate her already, everyone. Jesus, good God, yeah, it's just cloudy and like 60 degrees here, and yeah, I'm already in a sweater, so yeah, it's sweater weather already up here. But before I depress everyone with our, the horrible, weather that I'm about to experience, why don't you? For everyone who doesn't know, she's just had such a she's. I won't even spoil it. So why don't you just go ahead and just tell us your story, because I think it's just such an inspiring story that people need to hear.
All right, so back, as you guys know, when I was 17 years old, I had almost died of an eating disorder. I had gotten down to 70 pounds at 5'6", and every doctor called it quits on me. And I, at the time, was in what they call out treatment because I refuse to be in treatment. I don't like to be locked in and bound like that. And the outpatient doctor said to my mom, I'm done working with her because your daughter's going to die. And my mom, of course, freaked out and she didn't know what to do. So she immediately wanted to send me away. And I said to her to bring me to a doctor and to bring me to her doctor and get me blood work. And I was like, if my blood work comes back normal, I get to stay. And I knew it was a long shot considering what I looked like, the fact that I've passed out so many times. I knew it was a long shot. And I went to the doctor and I was right. There was nothing wrong with me except that I needed to gain weight. And it was unreal how I was still awake, still alive, still heart beating at 70 pounds and 5'6". So he said to my mom, take her where she wants to go. It's her choice if she's going to live or not, because obviously her body can handle it. So she's going to choose if she wants to do this or not. And I asked my parents if I could go to Florida, and we spent 10 days here. And in the 10 days that I spent in Florida, every night was like as if I wasn't here. Like I went somewhere else, and I've learned so much in that time. That through that experience, I learned it's not that even that I didn't want to eat, because it was never about food for me. It was always about if I even was worth it. Because in my life, a lot of things was a lot different. I wasn't always, it just wasn't always praised or given the same type of achievement as someone else. It was always kind of expected of me because since a young age, I was very intelligent. I was very athletic. So it always just seemed like people expected me to always be that 100%. So when I fell short of that, I always felt very bad. But then some unfortunate events happened when I was young, and I do have PTSD from it, and I have childhood trauma. And that's really what more or less triggered it, because it just more or less, when you're not hungry, the average person doesn't eat. So if you think about it, if you're sad, some people overeat, some people undereat. And I was one of those people that just underate. And I just went years and years like that. And I never really noticed nothing like that because it didn't bother me. It wasn't something of a typical case. Like I didn't think about food. I didn't sit there obsessing over it. I didn't care how many calories were in things. Like when I did eat, I ate whatever I wanted. So it was very different than the typical eating disorder because I wasn't in it for, oh, hey, I want to be skinny. I never once looked at one of those girls with bones and was like, wow, I would love to look like her. Like when I almost died, I looked at myself and I was disgusted because I knew what I looked like. I didn't have body dysmorphia, nothing. I knew exactly what I saw in front of the mirror. And I was more sad that life had got me, that I felt like, damn, like so many events occurred, like by the time of 17, that it was so hard to even just handle. Like, so when I went to Florida, I don't really know. I believe that truly I was given a gift because I had a near life death experience, and there are things that I saw that I don't think any that most people don't see, that you see in books, that people talk about, and it's unreal because now I look at my life and I'm grateful for it. I'm so grateful for the experience that I've gone through. And for the average person, they wouldn't be, because to them it might have destroyed their life. To me, it made me realize why I have a purpose of living. I didn't really more or less know my purpose beforehand. I've always known I was meant to help people in this world in some capacity or another because I'm very generous, I'm very kind, I have a very big heart for people, but I never knew exactly how. And prior to getting sick, I was a basketball player. Basketball was my life. I didn't know anything about basketball. From the age of 4 years old, I had a basketball in my hands. And I remember when I was in sixth grade, there was this one game that I was at, and we won, and there were 44 points scored total, and I scored 34 out of the 44 points. And the coach looked at me, and I was the center at the time because at the time I was the tallest on the team. And I remember crying because we won. And then the best part was when the national coach of the USA came down and asked me if I wanted to be a part of the national US basketball team. And they came to me 5 years in a row, and I had to decline all of them because my parents and my family didn't really have that opportunity to travel, and none of us really could have been able to do it because it just wasn't feasible for our family. And we figured that at my point, since I was already on varsity since seventh grade, which was never done in my school, and the fact that they promised me a starting spot in ninth grade, and I already had the highest statistics in seventh and eighth grade, and then I also got taken to almost go to St. John's on a full scholarship for basketball for the starting point guard. And we all believed that I had enough going for me that I didn't need the national team. And that probably is one of my biggest mistakes in life, is I wish I fought harder for the national team and to be a part of it, because I know that it could have probably saved me a lot of hurt, but I also don't think I would have been the person that I am today. I don't think I would know the same kindness. I don't think I would feel the same way for others. I don't think I would empathize with other people's situations. I just don't think I would be the same person. I think I would be nice and it would be good and I could still influence people, but unless you walk in other people's shoes, you truly never know what someone is going through. And I believe that all of my experiences have helped me so that I can help at least one person in this earth feel like they're not alone through this process. After being, because the big thing was I was basketball and a lacrosse player, so I was both actually. And it was a choice I had to make when I was in 10th grade, because they said to me, "You're going to be recruited for one or the other. Which one do you want?" And I was like, and the lacrosse was the for sure bet. The lacrosse was going to get me to the Ivy. It was going to get me into Harvard. It was going to be the star life that I always imagined. But I wanted the basketball because that's what I dreamed of. I was the one shooting threes, and every time I hear that swish, all I can hear is nothing but that. No matter how many people are in that crowd, no matter what. And when you know that it's just you, the hoop, and it's just the ball and you, and that you're in control of everything, that's what makes everything worth it. It's the same reason why after, and even while before I got sick, I started circus. So I started circus when I was 14 years old, actually 13, when my sister introduced me to Frenchwoods. And she already went there. She went to, we both went to Frenchwoods Festival Performing Arts Camp. It's actually where Maroon 5 originated from. So Maroon 5 started, yeah, he used to come to art camp every single year and perform because they all joined there. Like some of the biggest Broadway stars started there. And my sister introduced me and I fell in love. So I went there and I knew I couldn't sing. So I was like, okay, like let me see what I could do. And I fell in love with circus. And at first I started with cradle, which was extremely strength wise. Like me and Gabby were both in the same cradle, actual like same cradle session, the same cradle performance. We were in the same together. And then after cradle, we both went to web too. So we both were in the same performance for web. And then my sister eventually stopped going because she started to be on varsity volleyball. And I continued to go because I got invited to go to Circus Elite every year, which 10 out of 1,000 kids were invited. And you would perform 7 aerial acts of your choice, including either like lyra, hammock, cloud swing, flying trapeze, double trapeze, lyra, double lyra, swinging rings, you name it. So every year I would go and do that, and it was by far the greatest thing I did. So when I got sick, and even leading up to my Sweet 16, I performed at my Sweet 16 for circus. So I did a circus performance at my Sweet 16, and that's why it was all very sudden. When I had gotten very sick, it all happened very quick. It was in the matter of 4 months, I just lost half of myself, literally. Like I dropped 50 pounds in 3 months, and I didn't know really how. I don't know how the weight went so fast. I don't know. I turned around and it was like nobody was in the mirror anymore. And it happened right before my eyes. And then it kind of just went like that and it vanished too. Like, yes, there was always going to be struggles after, and there will always be. And that's something that any person who has ever dealt with something, it's not like you go your rest of your life thinking that you're beautiful, but that's nobody. But that's the truth and reality is that you have to look in the mirror and understand that, like, you can change your body into whatever you want. You don't have to be one thing. No one says that this is forever. If you don't like your body, you can change it. And that's something that some people don't realize. And when I started to get better, I said to myself, I'm not going to sit there like most people do. And most people who recover from eating disorders that are typical, it's just how much food can we get back in the person so they're back to normal, back to being regular. But all of that was already regular for me. I already had regular blood work. I already had everything was fine. There was nothing wrong with my bones. There was nothing wrong with anything. So there was nothing I had to get back to. So it was just gaining weight for me. So I said, I don't want to gain all this weight at once. I'm going to space it out over time. I'm going to gain 15 at first because I know I need to just add the weight back on so that my body has some room just in case something happens. And then from there, every year, I worked very, very hard to keep going. So in that trip in Florida, I gained 15 pounds in the 10 days. And when I came back, I actually graduated and I was actually homeschooled because I couldn't even walk from my car anymore. And I remember the one time that I'll never forget. I was telling a US history speech and I was wearing an orange shirt and jeans. And I remember because I started to read my speech and I never in my life have reread a sentence before. And I reread it again. And then I reread it again. And in my head, I said, oh my God, I just reread that 3 times. I'm going down. And the next thing you know, and I'm on the floor. And I have 30 people around me. And that's when I decided I wanted to be homeschooled because those 30 people, the shock on their face to watch somebody pass out right in front of them, I just couldn't do that to them. And I felt so embarrassed because I was so strong and everyone looked at me so differently. And I held like the Manhasset basketball team. And I did such a good job at trying so hard to always be a team player and try to be the captain and try to make sure everyone worked together and always gave their all. And I didn't want people to see me like that. So I chose to be homeschooled. So when I came back on that day of graduation, it was just wow from everybody. Everyone's like, what did you do? Just go on vacation? Like, you look amazing. And I'm like, I found life. Like, I realized that it doesn't matter. Like, no matter what, life goes on. And that's the truth. And it's really sad, but no matter what you do, it's going to continue. So you can choose to continue with it, or you can just be left back. And I wasn't going to be just left back. In my life, I've had so many things happen to me that was just a result of it all happening. So to me, I wanted to get past it. And when I went to graduation, I remember walking across that stage and my principal, because he's the one that helped me so much because by 10th grade, I finished all my high school classes. So I only took APs. So when I got homeschooled, I actually had a teacher come 1 hour a week because that's all the classes I had. I had 5 AP classes. So she just covered them all in 1 hour. And I took my tests all from home, everything. So in my living room, I did everything. And I managed to maintain all through this process a 4.0. I never lost my grades ever. I never lost my grades. I made sure to always take vitamins because I didn't want to die. There was no ever goal of dying in this. There was no goal of getting skinny and being like, oh, I have achieved my goal. There was no goal weight. My goal weight I hit and then I just fell because my whole life fell apart. So I didn't want that. So in those years and when I went to graduation, it was the greatest thing in the world because 3 months prior, I went to prom and it was the worst night of my life. My mom actually walked out of the gymnasium because she could not handle the way that people stared at me and parents looking at my mom and dad thinking, what is wrong with them? that they wouldn't do something. And I've never in my life had that feeling that 400 eyes staring on me because I chose a dress that when at the time fit me, but when I lost 50 pounds, drenched me. So there was a huge difference, and I kept taking it in, but it looked weird. And it was just like a dress that was so beautiful for what I used to look like, but with bones, no, it was gross. And the comments people made, though, were unnecessary. When someone's going through something, you don't continuously shoot them down. And it's the same way you can't tell someone when it's time to recover from something. Like, nobody told me, hey, you got to get better. Like, they said, it's your choice. And since they gave me that choice allowed me to make my own choice. And I'm glad because no one else chose it for me, meaning I'm not like the rest. The rest, 4 to 5 people go back into old habits, go back into their old weight, drop back to their old weight. I never once, from the day I hit my lowest weight of 70 pounds, ever saw 70 pounds again. Never. I had ups and downs, a couple pounds here and there, especially when I started college because it was a little stressful. So I just didn't have enough time. And again, I don't have an appetite, so I don't remember to eat. So it's something I consciously, even to this day, have to have a timer on to be like, oh, you got to make sure you eat. Even if I'm not hungry, it's like, okay, you got to eat just because I work out and just because my body does need it, even though I don't really think about it. I'm just so busy. And from that point on, when I had walked across that graduation stage, then after that, it was just pure bliss. My life suddenly felt clear. Even though I lost everything, it's as if I gained something completely different. Like I closed one door, but I opened so many more that I wanted. And at the time, I didn't think basketball would be obtainable again. And I didn't know if circus would be either. I didn't know if any of my dreams that I once had would be obtainable. So I chased my grades. I went hard after my grades and I went to University of Miami and I came to Florida and I got an apartment in Miami and I started my life there because I knew that it was time that I spread my wings and I learned to fly by myself and that was when I was really going to learn who I was. And from that point and to this day, I have spent 7 years gaining 40 pounds. So going from 70 to 110, which not at all bothers me because it was on my time. I made it so that I crafted it into what I wanted. Along the way, when I was ready and it was clear to exercise, yes, I did start exercising because there was nothing wrong with it. There was nothing wrong with it if you don't have really any of the symptoms or triggers that most people do that would get an eating disorder. So that's why none of that applied for me. So that's why I went back to working out. And then I would promise myself that the weight that I did gain, I would make it into what I wanted. And I wouldn't want anyone else's standards. That I don't want someone telling me what I should look like. No one has that right to tell me what I should look like. I love the way I look. And when I saw myself at my lowest, I saw what I saw, but I saw what was on the inside. And on the inside, I was still so beautiful. And that's something that people always forget is that it's not just about what's on the outside. There's so much more than what meets the eye. And I decided to gain my weight through muscle. And I more wanted to become very muscular. And I wanted not so much muscular, but I wanted to become very fit. And I wanted to be able to keep the lean mass that I am because I am very petite. And that's something that not everyone is. And that's something that people have to be aware of is that not everyone who is small or who has a natural small body type does not mean that they have an eating disorder and vice versa. If someone who has an eating disorder is very small and tiny at that time, they might not go back when they gain weight to being small or tiny. That might not be their set point. Everyone has their own set points and their own point in which their body needs to function at. That's the point that you need to get at, whatever that might be. And I know from some people, and even myself, it's hard to look at other people and to say, oh, but I want to look like that. No, you don't want to look like anyone else. You don't know what that person goes through. You don't know what it took for them to get there. You don't know the struggles that you see behind the picture. You don't know. So don't say you want that. Be the better version than you were yesterday. And that's always what my motive is, because no matter what, you wake up each day with hope. Because if there's one thing I could tell anyone, don't ever give up. Don't give up on hope. Because if you lose hope, you have nothing. And I never did because everyone called quits on me. My mom and dad even wasn't going to pay my college education because they thought I wasn't going to make it. So my college education was not paid for until the day before I started school. My life insurance policy was sold so that in case anything happened, that even though it wouldn't replace anything, it would help, I guess, with the funeral or whatnot if that did had come. So that's why a lot changed, and it was all very quickly. And then now it's different. I don't ever really. I look back because most people say don't look back in your life, and I disagree. I look back because it reminds me how far I came. Because I look at the life I had before, which was great, but I didn't have that same type of empathy, that same type of caring for people, that same type of love and wanting to just make a difference and just help even one person. Realizing that smiling at somebody, opening a door, saying thank you, the smallest things in life are going to make a difference. And even if you don't think they will, they did. Because that difference that you made in that person's life, they're going to make a difference in someone else's life because you just made them feel special. And there's one thing I've learned through this, and that's don't ever forget that you're unique. Every single one of us is unique for a reason. We are not the same. We're not ever supposed to be the same. If we were all the same, it would be boring. This world would be just one note. And that's not what it is. And that's not what it should be. We should all have different ideas. We should all look different. Everything should be of every different variety and form because the way that it is that we're supposed to understand and try to be able to grasp other people's way of living, trying to understand and also assimilate to what they have and not just focus on ourselves all the time. And I think that's what I took away from all of it at the end is that you have to live each day to the fullest. You don't live it carelessly though. You have to plan for the future, but you have to realize that there might not be a future. Anyone could die tomorrow. I could get struck by a bus tonight. And even after this cast, even after everything I've been through, yeah, I could die tonight. And guess what, though? You heard my story. And that means I might have helped one more person. And it's what you do with what happens that defines who you are. When life knocks you down, it's about getting up and keep going. If you stay on the floor, then you're the one that decided to fail and to quit. If you get up, you still have done the first step to succeeding, even if you're not even close. Every single step is an accomplishment, and it's something that people should not forget. It's not about getting just to the end goal. You have to appreciate the journey to the end goal, because then it makes the end goal all the much more worthy. You don't appreciate the end goal unless you understand how long and how hard, how many hurdles you went through to get there. If it was easy, why wouldn't everyone do it?
Wow. Just hearing that story, one thing that I think is just so much more different about your story than a lot of stories that a lot of people tell with eating disorders is that, like you said, you were that, that big athlete and, you were going to you could have went to St. John's. I mean, you had all these opportunities where a lot of the stories that I hear about are, people that, might not be the most popular. They might not be the most well liked, but what was the response that you got from friends when they started to see things maybe take a little turn south? What was the general reaction? Were they concerned? Were they nervous? Or what was that experience like?
I was in basketball full on. I had a personal trainer that I met 3 times a week that had colleges set up for me that would meet me at my travel teams, that would meet me at the games because I was being played, because I was making and I was on top. One day, the biggest thing was that when I lost the weight, people didn't notice. And that was the funny part. And I found it funny because how don't you notice? And that's when I started to realize and started to understand what world we live in and the type of person I am versus the type of person most people are. Most people didn't realize what I was going through because they cared about the bigger thing. Me making sure that I won the game for them, making sure I got the stats, making sure I got what they needed. My friends, they were my best friends. My three best friends, two being Katie and Sophie. They've been my best friends for 18 years. We've been best friends since we are 6 years old. They looked at me and they said, Chessie, we're behind you 100% because they weren't athletes. But that didn't mean we were complete, us three. If you were to put us on a piece of paper or line us up, you would have never thought we'd end up being best friends because we're all three so different, but we are all three so similar. So they didn't play sports, but they supported me in everything. And Katie did play tennis professionally, and she had a lot of injuries too. But when they started to see it, rather than everyone else turning their back, they came to me and they asked me, "What do I need?" And when I started to be homeschooled, they did something that I never thought my friends would ever do. And that's when my friends stopped going to school. They always used to ditch school, but they ditched school all day and hang out at my house. So I'd have the principal calling, being like, "Do you have Sophie, Katie, Haley, and Lizzie at your house?" I'm like, "Oh God." And every single day, a phone call at some point in the day. Chess, you want to hang out? Chess, you want to hang out? Chess, you want to hang out in your backyard? Because they knew that as friends and being my best friend, that if they were there for me and just loved me and cared about me, it was going to be okay. Because that's all it really is. Because for me, all this came down to was one thing: unconditional love without any boundaries, without feeling like there's expectations needed. And that's what my friends gave me. They never gave me expectations. They never gave me feeling like our love was conditional. I mean, to this day, they live in New York. And Sophie, my best friend, she has a baby, and I see her baby who's a year now, and I can't even believe the way all of us have grown through the years. And I'm like, I thank God that I had the best friends that I did. And no matter what, I always say there's nothing replacing a childhood best friend, and they helped me. And especially on that day of the senior prom, when those people started to look at me, I've never in my life have heard Sophie turn around or speak out even on her behalf. And rather, she spoke on my behalf and said, "What are you looking at? Do you have something that you got to say?" And I've never heard her ever. And then from that day on, I knew that they were my best friends always and that I would die for them. And I saw what they did and the rumors that they would put away and that they would shut off, such as being a drug dealer, such as being a drug user, being in drug rehab, the fact that they thought that I committed suicide. I tried to commit suicide. There was one that I was pregnant. The things that people came up with, I was like, this is wild. And things that they would tell me, I'm like, guys, really? That's what you heard today? I'm like, oh, please. I'm not someone that's about quantity. I'm about quality, meaning that I don't care how many friends I have. And to this day, right now, I have three best friends: Sophie, Katie, and Lexi. And Lexi is my first roommate from University of Miami, and she's getting married soon, so I'm her bridesmaid. So it's one of those can't wait things. But it was very sudden. But it's like I got three best friends. I would die for any three of those. I would travel the world for them. I every single month I send gifts up for the baby. I'll send surprises up for my best friend's birthday because they were there from day one. Everyone else, the outsiders, the people who thought they were my friends, the people who pretended to be my friends, all those people, they didn't know anything and they didn't care, even when it did happen. And especially when I started to vanish, people acted like that. People acted the same way I looked. And that's the worst thing you could do to somebody.
I mean, those friends are just. I mean, yeah. If I had, I'm one of those similar people too, where I'm much more over quality than quantity, and I only have, yeah, I could count them on my fingers, basically, all the true friends that I have. But what's one thing that you wish you could go back and tell yourself when you were struggling?
I was way more unique and special for a reason. I wasn't different for a reason. Like, I wasn't different for the bad. I wasn't different because I was worse than other people. And I wasn't different in that sense. And I should have never taken it like that. I should have never looked at myself and thought that I was the one that was different or that I was the miscast because I was caring. I was a good person. And that's how I look at it now. Over the years, when I realized that what I was a really good person, then I'm like, it's okay. Like, I got through it with the hope, but I wish I would have also gotten through it knowing that I was special. And that's what did help me once I almost died is during the near life death experience, something happened that most people might not agree with. Some people religiously might not agree with, but I did die and I saw the other side. I spent a lot of time on the other side. And it's something that have been written about in books. And there are things that match with my story that have been written in books and what I've seen and what I knew after. And that's why when I woke up that morning in Florida, I knew my worth. I knew exactly what I was. And I knew that I was special for a reason and that I had to be different and I had to be because it was going to mean that I could spread good in the world. Because as you see, our world is becoming crap. People are becoming worse. People are terrible to each other. When I think about little kids committing suicide, it breaks my heart because I'm like, no, that's not the way it's supposed to be. You're supposed to be happy. People are supposed to love each other. There's no difference in size, shape, nothing. Stop judging people on their outer appearances. It's not about your outer appearance, it's about who you are as a person. It's like at the end of the day, I say to people, what matters? If I have the lights off, can I see you? No. The only thing I'm looking at is into your heart. And I want to know you're a good person. At the end of the day, when you die, are you remembered for how much money you have? Maybe in a book. But the people that loved you, do you think that they cared about how much money you have? No. They look at the qualities that made you into what you were, that maybe gave you all of that money, that translated because you were such a good person. But they're not looking at the money, they're looking at your characteristics. And that's what I tell people is that, you might look at someone and you might say, hey, I want to look like them. Maybe I want to get a little bit more tone. Maybe I want to add a little bit more muscle here. Nothing happens overnight. And I can say that because I've been doing this for now 7 years, and it has taken me 7 years where I now look in the mirror and I'm like, damn, girl, like you got your stuff going for you. And I can say that, like, and I don't mind, like, and it's not something like where someone should feel cocky about saying it either. There's a difference between being cocky and confident. And I think a lot of people need to learn to be confident with who they are and learn to love themselves because if you don't love yourself, it is very difficult for someone else to love you because they won't know how.
I totally agree with that, and that's just such great advice. And I mean, I do have to ask though, because I am so fascinated with people who have those after death experiences. What happened? What did you see when you went over to the other side?
Uh, so I would go to bed at night, and because my parents would tell me about too, they would check in on me, and they couldn't really feel a heartbeat or anything, and they'd get nervous and they would shake me to make sure I was still alive. And it was like my body, and to this day, it still happens. When I go to sleep, it's like I'm no longer in my body. I go somewhere else, and that's what happened. I went to the other side, and when they say the gates of heaven, they're not kidding. They're literally the gates of heaven, the stairway, everything. He's waiting right there. And he was. And there was a bench. And we sat on that bench for those 10 nights I went to bed. And I slept more than I was awake for that reason, was because I wanted to know why I was here. And every day we sat on that bench and he said to me, you have a choice in this life. He goes, but I will tell you, I will show you what you can become and what you have the potential to be and who you are if you're willing to give it another shot. He goes, I didn't put you through all this and we didn't choose all of this for nothing. He's like, you are so much stronger than this. And he gave me the option. He said to me, do you want to continue and do you want to know? He goes, but once I show you and you go back, you have to make sure you fulfill it and don't give up no matter what. And I said, show me. And when he showed me who I was and the life that I was going to have, you better guess I was running back. And there was nothing else that I could say because although the other side is so wonderful, and I can promise everyone that as wonderful as it might sound, wait for your time because if you go before your time, it's not going to be that wonderful place because you earn that after this life, after your struggles, after what you deal with, after what you overcome, after what you learn through life. That's when you get that reward of being there and getting to have ultimate happiness. Because, yes, every night I went to bed, I felt free. I could fly. I felt like I was invincible. And to know the conversations I had, to see what I had seen, to know that I know how life works, that I know how death works, where I go, what happens. Some of the biggest questions people have, I have answered. But That doesn't mean that everyone would believe it. And that's why I don't talk about it, is because I use that experience to now made me who I was today. And every day reminds me, Chess, don't forget, even on my bad days, don't forget, Chess, you're special. You're different. You were put here and he showed you why. And he showed you for a reason. He wouldn't have showed you if you weren't special. Everyone has a calling. There's just very few of us that get near that close to death and still make it out. And that's why it's like I have books right there on my counter that are about after death. I had to know if what I saw was accurate and if other people had seen similar things, and they all have. And to this day, from that near life death experience, I could sit on my patio and I can hear him. I can hear him talking to me when I need to. At nighttime, I still fly at times. I still go back. So it's different. It's like he gave me a little piece of hope and he gave me a little bit to keep going, that through every obstacle, here's this little bit of hope for you to remember that you're different, that you're put here to make an actual significant impact. And that's what I hope to do, is that my life, if I can help the world, my life was worth it. Any which way. I don't care how people look at me after. I don't care about any of that. If I helped somebody and I did what I had to and that person gets to live another day, I'm happy. And I've already done that before. I've given $10,000 to somebody. I've given $5,000 to somebody. And they were my best friends. I lost them after. But it's okay, because guess what? They lived. That money they needed to live. And I understand and I get it. And I'm not mad at them for it, because they're still alive. The same way that there are people along my journey, even when I was sick, I was still helping people recover from eating disorders. So even though I technically had one, I was helping other people recover. Because you have something negative happen to you, you have to find out why. Or not even why, just a lesson. Take something from it and apply it to your life later. Don't just let these things happen to you and you not take anything from it, because then it's just going to keep happening. You're not getting it. If you don't take away something from those experiences and learn, you're going to go through something similar again.
I mean, I don't even have words really to respond to that. I mean, that's just such great advice too. And I mean, that you're able to just still help out people while you were going through this yourself. I mean, just really proves the type of character that you have. But I love to talk about misconceptions on this podcast. I mean, I went through all the fitness misconceptions with your sister, so I already went through all those. But when it comes to eating disorders, what do you think is probably one of the biggest misconceptions the general public has about, either the disorder itself or the people that suffer from it?
I think that by far the biggest thing is that people look at weight as what defines you as an eating disorder, meaning that when they see somebody who's maybe 95, 100 pounds, they're going to be like, oh, that person's definitely anorexic. That's not the case. That person might be naturally skinny. Now, you also have this other problem where you have individuals that might be 160 pounds that are starving themselves. They are considered to be anorexic. Yes, they're not anorexic weight, but that does not mean that they're not anorexic. You don't have to meet your weight with your description. The same way someone who is 180 pounds could have binge eating disorder and obesity, which is considered to be an actual eating disorder. Binge eating is actually an eating disorder. And that's why I say when I got sad, I went the opposite. I stopped eating. Some people overeat and they go to the other extreme. And the biggest misconception people have is that weight is what defines it. And the fact that everyone is the same. They think that every case to case is the same. And I'm proof that I'm not, that it's not. There are people that don't fit the odds, that you can beat those odds. And that's why I don't believe in the statistics. I don't believe that it's 1 in every 5. You decide if you're the 1 in every 5. I don't believe that it's just, and that's why I'm sorry, but there's no standard case, because when they start to tell me the standard case, I didn't fit in the standard case. I'm not someone who didn't have a lot of friends. I wasn't a misfit. I didn't exhibit any signs of not wanting to eat. I didn't exhibit anything that would have led to an eating disorder. And My recovery even shows more that I did not have any signs of it because the chances of relapse is so high because they think you want to look like that. So they think that you're trying to achieve that again. So they think the relapse on that is almost near impossible to ever make it through. Because to this day, when I go back and I went back to my doctor that told me I almost died, she looked at me and her mouth dropped. And I was like, I told you I would do it. I told you I wasn't going to die. Don't ever count someone out until they say that they're out. And that's what I would say about it is don't ever, ever think that one case is the same from one to the next. Like I could have a friend that might have another disorder that no one can even see. And that's one of the biggest misconceptions is you don't see eating disorders. Because guess what? Food is everywhere. So people think it's so natural that everyone just does it, that every single person, eats breakfast, lunch, and dinner and has like a standard 2,000 calories diet or whatever fits their needs. Like, no, that's not. It is so different. Every single person that goes through an eating disorder is different. Everything that they struggle through is different. They might have commonalities of similar weight, or they might have commonalities of, for example, not having that overwhelming conditional love, or they might have some sense of missing. But every story is different. And every single case should be looked at differently because I think that everyone needs a different way to get better. Some people might need the same way, but they might need a different approach. Like I know my approach would have been way different than if it was, for example, my sister. We are so different in personalities that it would have been different.
I can
And
tell
that's
I
why
can tell by listening to you talk even for 45 minutes and comparing and contrasting. You guys are different, but I enjoy that.
we're as close to as identical as it is, besides being identical twins. So that just shows that two people in the same family could be so different. And I'm a very lean, muscular woman. My sister is more muscular, more physique. She loves it. Even though I can lift very similar to her, my body mass will never look the way that hers does. My figure, my structure, I can only get it so big because I'm a tiny, petite girl. So I know that I'm never going to look like that. But that's okay. And that's what I tell people. You're supposed to be okay with that. Learn your body type. Learn what is best for you and what makes you happy.
I gotta say, when you were talking about the whole petite thing, I just remembered when I was talking to your sister, I asked her the question about, like, one fear that women have a lot when they enter the gym is that if they, touch one weight, they're gonna put on 50 pound muscle. And she's like, look at I can't even do her New York accent because she has much more of a New York accent. You've lost yours a little bit, but I'm not even gonna try to do it. But she's like, look at my sister, she's so petite, she can lift weights all the time. She's not gonna gain that much muscle. I was like, that myth doesn't exist. And I mean,
It's a complete myth. I mean, my sister hates me because of how lean and how much I can lift, and she's like, "Are you
yeah,
serious?"
she even told me that she's like everyone's like, are you kidding me? That's just absolutely ridiculous. Like I could, yeah. I remember talking to her about that. So I mean, and yeah, and that really does prove too. But I got to ask you the one question that everyone is thinking: how the hell were you able to maintain a 4.0 while going through this? That just, I mean, that's like. I couldn't even maintain a 4.0 and I didn't go through anything. It's like, how were you able to do that? Because you'd think, I just, that just is amazing to me. How'd you do it?
I did it. I always was in love with school. So from the age of 3 years old, I actually asked my parents to buy me a college math textbook. There was something different about me from the day I was born. I was coloring like in the lines at 2 years old. So I taught my sister how to color in the line. And my sister is one of the most phenomenal artists in the world. I will never be able to draw like her. But I remember when we were 2 years old and I was coloring, her lines were everywhere and mine were all in the line. And I, from 3 years old, I got that textbook and I had my first opportunity actually to skip pre K and to skip a grade. My parents said no because of Gabby, because we are one grade apart, and that would mean that we'd be in the same grade. It was again presented in first grade to skip a grade because in first grade I was doing long division and I was doing long multiplication and I loved it. And they wouldn't put me in the gifted program though because they thought I was beyond gifted and that I should just go on to the next level and finish school as quick as possible. But my parents didn't want to deprive me of a childhood. So, and I loved sports and I loved everything. Like I was also a gymnast at the same time. So I used to do gymnastics. I used to be a dancer. I used to be on varsity basketball and varsity lacrosse. So the two that I was doing while I got sick and maintained a 4.0 was lacrosse and basketball. And during that time, when I got sick, all I thought about was I still got to make it because I knew I wasn't going to die. So I had to think to myself, what is going to still get me to where I was going to go? And I needed to get to a tier 1 school so that I can make and know that I had a good enough education to make some kind of difference that would lead me to a master's to get that psychotherapist license and licensure that I need. So I knew I needed to get to a good school. And I had all the grades because for me, that's where I got my praise. I didn't really have a lot of attention growing up. So I got a lot of attention through school, through my teachers, because they always said to me, you're the student that we always dream about, the one that raises their hands, they asked all the questions, because I wanted to know everything. I wanted to make sure. And when it got to that point, I had already finished college. I already finished high school. So my high school GPA was already locked in. So he had said to me, my principal said to me, you don't have to take any classes. He's like, you could drop every class if you want. And I was like, no, I don't want to. I'm like, I want to take every class. And I finished all my AP classes because it made me feel like I still had an accomplishment, that I was still working towards something, even though my whole life was falling apart. Because I don't believe in giving up. That even when I'm at my lowest, I am still going to try. I'm going to try my damn hardest, even if I fail, because then at least I know I tried. And that's how you miss every shot in life that you don't take. And that's the biggest thing I learned from basketball. And something to this day I take is that if you don't take that shot, you're going to 100% miss it because you didn't take it.
And one thing that I haven't mentioned too is that I played basketball myself in high school. I'm 6'3", so I was a guard. So, I have that guard body. So, that's one thing, especially when I started with the whole weight thing where it's like my entire lower body. Good luck growing anything that way, just being that tall. But yeah, with the whole grades thing, I mean, that's what I love so much about your story is that it proves that, I mean, you can be the smart kid in school who, seems like they have everything going for them. They can be, the star varsity athlete, and it doesn't matter. You can still suffer from these things because I think a lot of times people just think that, if someone has that good of a life or if they're that accomplished that nothing bad can happen to them. But your story, I mean, just proves that. I mean, it can come for anyone, and it's just the fact that you were able to overcome this and what you're doing now is just so inspiring. But I ask this for everyone that I come on the podcast when it comes to what advice do they have for people. What advice do you have for someone who might currently be experiencing something like this? What do you think would be a good way for them to be able to, first of all, maybe like express that they are struggling, or how they should get help?
So, in order to get better, you actually need to want to be helped in some way or another. It doesn't necessarily need to be even about weight. And that's what I say, first of all, is most of the time, it has nothing to do with weight. It has to do with something that they were made to feel like, and that they used food as their control to decide and dictate the only thing in their life that they could. So that's about what it feels. If I could tell anyone anything, it would be this. Don't ever lose hope in yourself that you are amazing, because every single individual is amazing and you are incredible, and that you are so much stronger than you think. And you don't know what strong is until you have to be strong. But don't ever lose that hope that you can't beat the odds, that you can't make it, that you can't overcome, and that you can't go and live a very successful, happy marriage, be beyond flourishing, because you can. You don't give up on yourself. And that's one thing I tell people, because a lot of people give up, other people give up on them. And they're not alone. And that's something that you have to know if you ever do struggle, is that you're not alone. Even though everyone's story might be different, you're not alone in the fact that there are other people that are dealing with very similar things that feel like they don't have anyone either. And the thing that you have to know is that you're not alone. There are people that love you like you can't imagine, that even though the world continues on, for the people in your life, it won't. If you die, life will stop for them. It might go on for everyone else, but for them it won't. And even if your immediate love doesn't come from your immediate family, there is someone in the world that does love you. And if they don't, I'm telling you on this podcast, reach out to me. I promise you I will. I will be there for you. I have never turned down anybody that I did know, didn't know, that I have met in an airport, I sat next to in a plane. I don't care. I've given money to homeless people every time I see one. And I don't care because even if they decide to do what they need to do or whatever, I did what I thought was best and what I thought was in my heart. If you are ever struggling and you truly don't know where to start and you are lost and you don't want to reach out to someone because maybe you're embarrassed or maybe you feel like this never would have happened to you or you feel like no one will understand and you feel like people will judge you, reach out to me. I will help you in any way that I can. If anything, and it's been seen many times, even medically, that the brain has so much power, and you have to tell yourself you're going to make it. Because when you give up on yourself, that's when things start to go bad. Is because you can't. You just in life, I've learned that you got to be your biggest supporter. Because although you might have best friends, although you might have people that are there for you, if you learn to love yourself and you learn that you are your biggest competitor as well as your strongest tool, you learn that you have everything, all the tools you need to be successful, you have. It's about figuring out which ones are best for your skill sets. And then you go and maximize them. And when people are made to feel special, everything changes. Food doesn't become an issue anymore because it just loved, and it's something that's very, very, very normalized and talked about even through psychology and statistics that even as a child, if you're loved more, you will have better outcomes for your adult childhood. It's like I'm a psychology major, as you know, and I'm going to be a therapist. It's saying that if you have a secure attachment at a young age, you're going to form secure attachments with other people when you're older. If you have an insecure attachment with your parent as a young child, you will have problems in your friendships when you're older.
No, yeah, it's that's so true that I mean, everyone always tries with anything that happens in life. They always try, "Oh, why did the person do this? What's the reason why they did that?" But it's never just one reason. It's always a compounding amount of factors and everyone always just wants to be their own detective and figure out, "Oh, this is exactly why stuff happened." But no, it is just a variety of things. But I gotta ask because I ask this to every single one of my guests. I mean, if we were to talk to you a year from today, where would you like to be at in your life? What are some goals that you would like to have achieved if we were to talk a year from today?
Well, I actually started circus back up last year on the other coast back when I was in Naples, and I was performing at like 16 feet high, which was reasonable height, but I used to perform at 35 feet. So I love to be up there and wild and dangerous. And I was like, okay, like this is great. But then eventually, like, there was no more they could teach me. Like, I was better than the advanced teacher because I have 14 years of circus under my belt. So I then came to this coast and I actually am now I'm going tonight. I'm so excited. I have circus tonight. I love circus. It's 2 hours long. But I always go every single week and I go either 2 to 3 times a week because it's 2 hours long. And if you know circus, you don't want to put your body through more than 2 or 3 hours, especially when you're doing silks like I am. And you're not on the ground at all. So everything is upper body. Everything is like, I can muscle up a rope and my sister can't even muscle up. So it's like one of those things are like the biggest achievements because I'm like, oh yes. And circus is something that has driven me so much. And like now that I've gotten to this circus, it's like as I continue to perform and now that I'm at the new gymnasium and I'm training with, he was actually the Russian gymnast for an Olympic team. He was a coach, and that's why he has turned so much upside down for me. Like things that like I'm traditional aerialist, so I'm learning now new modernized aerial. So like I'm doing like even more drops than I used. Like I used to do double drops. Now I'm doing quadruple drops where I'm dropping from 25 feet in the air and I'm just hitting right 1 foot below the ground. And it feels amazing. So I hope that in this next year, there are a few things I need to accomplish or that I want to accomplish. First thing is that I want to become even better at circus and I want to keep going. And when it comes to it, I do want to perform. And I've been offered to perform, but I want to perform big. Like I want to go and, for example, perform at the clubs, like at nightclubs in Miami. I want to perform at Lives because they take aerial acts all the time. I want to go perform at Space. I want to go perform And I was invited into the circus, and I didn't take it because I was 18. I was going to college. But I would love if I can get, even if I don't get paid, even volunteering and getting to perform. Because performing at any level is one of the greatest feelings in the world. Because it reminds me of being back at basketball, hearing those hundreds and hundreds of people around me. And as soon as I made that shot after that swoosh, that's when I would hear the noise. And that's why I started playing basketball too. I started back up last year, and it's like I never dropped the ball because I have a ball in my basketball bag. I have a ball and the shoes always ready to go because I never know if I'm going to find a hoop that I could stop and play at. And it's the same thing for basketball. I hope I continue to get better. And it's actually crazy, but I'm better today than I was when I was about to be recruited for a D1 athlete. Like, I can shoot threes like it's with eyes closed, and I know it's because I have hope. I have drive. Everything I want now is because I work for it, because I know what it's like to lose every single thing. So all of my dreams and my hopes for every single year is to be better than the previous year. So I want to be better at basketball because I love it so much, and my whole life was about it. And the other goal I definitely want is that I want to continue to pursue my education, and I want to continue to get on the path of being a psychotherapist. But more importantly, I want to focus on helping people outside of the school environment. And I'm going to be taking at least one mission trip where I'm going to go to a foreign country and I'm going to rebuild houses for people. And I want to give back to the community. And I need to, because I don't think it's right for the way that we just sit here and we all live and we have all this money. Because if I could, if I had the money, I would. I would give as much as I could because I know how much of a difference it would make. And if I can build houses for people, if I can, and since I'm a teacher and I'm a full-time tutor, I can go ahead and I can bring teaching to them. So I can teach them. I can go across the country and I can go teach people in Nicaragua that have no education, at least something. Because without any support, no one has a chance of making it. Everybody needs some type of support system. And that's why I want to be here, is to be people's support system. I don't care if they're random strangers that reach out, anything. I hope that my story today and my story in life gets out to people so that they know that there is someone that does care about them. Because even though I've maybe never met you, you or someone else, it doesn't matter. I care about you. My heart gives for every single human being on this earth. And if I can help you in any single way and it's attainable, I will 100% do so. I don't care if it means me taking an hour out of my time. It's just an hour. I don't care. All the time that I have spent, if it means that you're gonna get to live a happy life, I'll take all the hours you need. Sit down. Like, I don't care. There's no rush. And it's the same thing, like, when I am gonna become a therapist, I believe in you pay what you can afford. I'm not about money. I know that I need to make a living, so I know what I need. But past that, no. That's why I'm going to start. I will be writing books when I get older because, again, if you can't afford my services and if you can't even make it to me, read my book, read the journey, read the story. I promise it'll be the same thing. And there'll be my contact information. So you can email me. You can contact me. I will email back. I don't care how busy I ever get in life. I will never turn down someone who needs help. And the last thing I want in this next year is I just want to continue to try to better myself in any which way. And I know that I do choose to always be selfless. And that's one thing that I do have to learn, that I do have to be a little bit more selfish and that I do have to take more time for me and the things that I love. And that's why I am pursuing circus and basketball and the gym as hard as I am, is because that's what makes me feel like I can fly. And when I can fly, I can help anyone.
And I totally agree with that. And you just have such a great and inspiring story. And I mean, I highly recommend everyone go and check out your Instagram page. I'll leave a link down below to it. But is there anyone that you'd like to give a shout out to before we wrap things up?
Yeah, 100%. I definitely want to give a shout out to my sister first. My sister is by far Gabriella DeLuca. You know, she's a physique. She competes in figure for WPF, or I don't know exactly the initials. I'm not exact on that. But my sister, she's an amazing competitor. And if it wasn't for her telling me to take the podcast and telling me who you were, I wouldn't be on here today. And me and my sister have gone through very similar things in life. And my sister is one of the biggest reasons why I still go to the gym every single day, and why I wanted to be bigger and stronger is because I did look at my sister and I was like, you know what? I'm done being small. I'm done. Just because I'm a petite figure doesn't mean I can't have muscle. And I wanted to grow. And I saw my sister and I was like, you know, Gab, like I do want to grow bigger. And yeah, she has been amazing. My sister is someone that she's very complex to understand, but when you grew up with her your whole life, she's my best friend in the entire world. And she's one of the greatest human beings in the world. And it's the same thing. It's like if you ever need fitness advice, if you ever need anything about working out, reach out to her because she's also amazing. The same way I can help you, she can help you. We are from the same genetic pool, so we have very similar genes, we have very similar muscle, and we have very similar attitudes towards wanting to help people in regards to fitness and around our journeys that we both have gone through because it's what made us who we are right now. And then if I'm going to also shout out my parents because without them, I wouldn't be here. They have gone above and beyond. And I did move home for 1 year to save money before I went off to get my doctorate. And my parents, they helped me to fix our relationship from a little kid. And that helped tenfold because that was one of the biggest reasons why I struggled was because I didn't have as much attention as my other sister did, but it was necessary at the time, and it's 100% okay. And my parents gave that back to me when I was 23, and I can't thank them enough because I see them every Sunday, and when they leave, I almost cry because I love them so much, and I can't imagine my life without them. They're my best friends. My best friends are my parents and my sister, and Sophie and Katie, which they deserve a shout out because they're the best friends in the entire world. I couldn't have asked for better friends. And Lexi, you're the greatest. I don't see you a lot. You're in California, but you're my running buddy. She's a huge runner. She runs 7, 8 miles a day. She's my girl. Very similar.
She's one of those people. Oh God.
No, no, no. She's so great. Honestly, she's so different. I mean, literally, in the matter of a month, she moved from Naples, Florida to San Francisco, and she's getting married. So I'm like, oh wow, lots of change. But those are the people, and I really do appreciate you putting me on here and letting me share my story with the world and my love for fitness and my love for circus and just my journey through this.
I mean, it is my absolute honor and pleasure to have you on. And I mean, anyone, like I said, go check out her Instagram page. I'll leave the link to her sister's Instagram page down below and the podcast that I did with her sister. And again, shout out to Gabby then too for helping set this up because yeah, I mean, it was so great having you on and sharing your story. And I always said, if this just helps just one person, it is so worthwhile. And just keep doing what you're doing. And I mean, it's just such an inspiration to see that you've been able to take what happened to you and turn it into something positive now. And now that you're helping out others, I mean, I honestly wish you nothing but the best of success. And again, go and give her a follow. You'll get motivated to get off the couch and stop eating those Twinkies, like I always say for all my health and fitness guests. But again, we cannot thank you enough for coming on the podcast. It was an absolute delight talking to you. And this is Ryan Johnson, DD on the spot, signing out. Have a great day, everyone.